So, James Gunn spent months hyping up the Supergirl script like it was a certified cinematic masterpiece. But after actually sitting through it, this movie is fucking rough, guys, and I'm still trying to get all my words together. So, bear with me. I'm trying to film this right off the top of my dome. So, as the follow up to last year's Superman, this movie is fucking cringy. It's cliche, it's a tedious mess filled with all the bullshit that we've been dealing with modern Hollywood for a few years now. Now, look, we aren't going to do a long history lesson today. We're just going to look at the raw facts of why this movie completely dropped the ball and butchered its own lore and delivered a protagonist who is completely unlikable and, to be quite honest, impossible to root for. Let's get into the facts. But before we do, like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you like these kind of videos. Now let's jump into it. So, spoiler alert, there are some things I'm going to talk about. So if you haven't seen the movie, feel free to click off now. But if you want to stick around, feel free to do so. So the setup here in this movie is an absolute joke. We get some flashbacks explaining how Kara's father separated a chunk of Krypton called Argo City from the planet. But then the planet gets flooded with radiation due to kryptonite or whatever the fuck it was. And to escape, her parents send her and her dog Crypto off-world. She's supposed to take care of Clark and all that other bullshit. But Kara decides, fuck that noise. I'm too cool to go look after Kal-El, and she spends her time getting absolutely wrecked and partying on red sun solar systems. Just like someone you'd find pretty much passed out behind a nightclub on a Sunday morning in their own fucking vomit. So we pick up on her 23rd birthday where she meets a girl named Ruthie, who is hunting a space pirate named Krim for murdering her family. And lo and befucking-hold, Krim conveniently shows up, steals Kara's ship, and shoots Crypto with a slow-acting poison dart. Right out of the gate, this movie plays into the oldest, laziest trope in the book. Put a cute dog in danger just to force the audience along for a generic sci-fi quest. It's total bullshit. And the tragic part is that there's actually a deep, compelling theme kind of buried under all this nonsense. I mean, we've been calling Superman comic book Jesus for decades, to be quite honest. So framing his cousin as the prodigal daughter or prodigal cousin, if you will, wasting her life, who has to find her way back to being a hero? Well, that's kind of great lore. It's not really too bad. I've seen worse, but not too bad. Frustratingly, this movie completely buries its own soul under a mountain of uninspired and then coincidences strung together just for film justifications. And there's another part in this movie that kind of grinds my gears, like when she lands on Earth or whatever and she sees Clark, all Supermaned up in his costume. Why didn't Kara just kind of translate what was in the message that was sent with Clark once she learned English? Also, why is she kind of, shocked to see Clark in the Superman outfit with the Superman symbol? Like, you kind of think she would have known what those things are and that she would have known what the House of L symbol stands for. You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck was that all about? Anyways, I digress. One of the biggest issues with this film is that Kara is completely unlikable. The writers tried so hard to avoid making her a Mary Sue that they swung entirely the other way. She comes across as an annoying crash out, a fucking disaster who doesn't care about anyone but herself. The kind of person who flips the bird with a pissed off expression in every picture just because she desperately needs you to know she's that bitch. Just how edgy she really is. They try to paint her as this jaded, cynical, world-weary protagonist or person who tried and failed to become a hero, but it completely falls flat because she's only 23. Like, maybe if this were an older superwoman or an older hero, maybe you can kind of pull that off. But she's 20 fucking 3. How can you have a lifetime of profound regrets when you haven't lived anything? You haven't really lived life to begin with? Like, if they wanted an anti-hero arc for her, they should have just made her really energetic, a loose cannon idealist who acts first and thinks later, learning the hard way that real life is complicated. And you fuck around and you find out there you lose things, right? But they don't do that. You know, you kind of have to show the audience the fall if you want them to cheer for the rise. Instead, she completely forgets a lot. You know, she completely forgets her own powers for the sake of plot convenience. She loses the villain and completely forgets that she has x-ray vision to look through walls. Because Kryptonians are so hilariously overpowered, modern writers kind of have to power them down. They have to nerf them, you know what I mean? Because they either have to invent cosmic level threats or nerf them to a comedic degree. The script chooses the laziest nerf option in every single time throughout this film. The second act, she gets weaker under a green sun, but undergoes zero actual trials or character growth. She just helpfully gets better the second a young yellow sun pops out. Convenient. Anyways, we have to talk about the visuals and the lighting in this movie. Visually, the movie is a complete mess. It feels like the filmmakers wanted a pretentious talking point about only using natural light on a green screen, but the execution looks terrible. I don't know what happened there. They have like these massive blinding lights directly behind in the background with zero key light in front of the characters, leaving the actors looking pitch black and muddy. It looks fucking awful. It looks awful on screen. It's like someone left the camera on auto ISO and just kind of hope for the best. That's pretty much what happened. But the movie is not all bad. There is one saving grace of this entire film. And what saving grace, you might ask? Well, it's Jason Momoa as Lobo, or Lobo as Jason Momoa. But if you sit through this movie, you'll kind of find out, and you know, let's just be real here, some of his scenes feel completely added in post-production. You know, it's kind of transparent that some of the executives panicked halfway through editing and realized that the film was fucking ass, it was boring, and then they just kind of threw Jason Momoa in there to save it, you know, just to kind of get those fan points. You know, he shows up for 5 minutes, plays himself, does absolutely nothing to alter the plot. You can kind of cut him out this entire movie and it would end up the exact same. But as I said, it's just pure desperate fan service. That's all that it is. And the villain Krim, easily the weakest, most forgettable antagonist I've probably ever seen in any superhero movie or any movie at all. I mean, he's interchangeable. You kind of forget who he is throughout the movie. He looks completely like his, you know, his little posse. You kind of think like, wait, is that him? Or is so you fucking forgettable. The only thing about this movie is he does like these bad impressions, I don't know, of maybe Robert De Niro or some shit out of Mad Max. You know, it is kind of weird. It feels like an AI generated his character traits just to check off boxes and make the audience hate him. And his death means absolutely nothing because he has zero substance to begin with. So after watching this movie, you kind of think to yourself, how did a $200 million superhero blockbuster end up looking this uninspired? Well, look no further than James Gunn's studio politics behind the camera. James Gunn handed the keys to a massive franchise to Ana Nogueira, however the hell you say her name, a former, I would say, attractive TV actress whose only major prior screenwriting credit is a micro budget for a short film 8 years ago about a couple. I mean, I guess you can put two and two together and figure out how she got this fucking job. To go from a micro budget short film to writing the rebooted DC cinematic universe is staggering, and it was a huge fucking corporate gamble, and guess what, it completely backfired. But like I said, put two and two together and you can kind of see how she got this job, right? The dialogue is just a grating mix of one-liners, desperate attempts of millennial edginess, hope you guys can see my air quotes, and forced meta quips to completely run counter to the source material. They pulled a character based on a niche, the Tom King comic run, which was terrible anyways, and they ignored half a century of established lore for this character, and we end up with Supergirl. Yeah. So Supergirl is nothing but a depressingly bleak, horrible looking, uninspired studio shock fest. The movie it was terrible. And it's something that no one particularly asked for or was excited for, but we got it anyway. Yeah. But I want to hear from you guys. Did you guys watch the movie? Did you guys go see the movie? Did Jason Momoa's Lobo save the experience for you? Let's keep this conversation going on in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.